Happy April. It's Andriana, and I'm so glad that you tuned into this episode of The Juggle is Real. I'm thrilled to share this conversation with my guest, Rebekah Higgs. You know that spring is this beautiful season of transformation, whether it's refreshing your home or making some new career moves or just embracing personal growth. Rebekah Higgs, also known as the DIY mom, went from being a broke single mom to becoming a thriving entrepreneur, designer, and renovator with a loyal community and following of over 150,000 followers. She's built a career on her own terms, flipping homes, empowering women to take charge of their spaces, and proving that creativity and resilience go hand in hand. In this episode, we are talking about embracing change with confidence. We're going to hear a little bit about her beginnings and her startings as a actor and musician to where she is now and the DIY home projects and navigating life's biggest challenges that she's been through. Rebekah is also going to share her experience with feminist entrepreneurship, overcoming some personal hardships, and a recent incredible trip that was so life-changing for her in South Africa, where she worked with children leading their own households and starting their own entrepreneurial journeys. So if you are ready for some major inspiration, whether it be for your home, your spring clean, your career, or your mindset, this conversation is for you. Let's dive right in.
Hey, I'm Andriana Gonco, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started.
Hey, Rebekah, welcome to the Juggle is Real. I'm so thrilled that you're making time to have this conversation. How are you doing today?
I'm great, and it's great to see you. Thanks so much for having me on this podcast. I'm excited to talk to you and also to your listeners.
I think you completely understand how the juggle is real. And so we've got lots to chat about, especially looking at the power of reinvention. I think it's just incredible, looking back and seeing all those little breadcrumbs and where it's led you to where you are today. Your journey has taken many turns. You were a musician and a designer. Now you're, doing content creation and really this DIY boss. And so can you talk to us a little bit about this journey and what that turning point was when you knew that the DIY and the home renovation stuff was your path and your purpose?
Yeah, sure. Well, growing up, I did have parents that were very involved in the real estate industry here in Halifax in terms of buying and selling and fixing up their houses. So we moved frequently. That was a part of my childhood I was used to. And my mom was very creative and decorating things and making spaces beautiful. And my dad, I would see him doing things that maybe he wasn't familiar with, like setting up scaffolding. And I remember at one stage he had to burn off all the paint on the exterior, all the oil paint, and freshen the shingles up. So, my parents were risk takers. They were explorers. They were not afraid to move us around and expose their kids to lots of renovations and things around the house. So I was raised with that. It was pretty natural. But then in university, I went off in a different area. I wanted to be an actress. I did a theater degree. I had a minor in music. And after university, I sort of followed that music career. So I went from being a kid that was in musicals and played the piano and played the violin to teaching myself how to play the guitar and writing my own songs. And so my 20s were really about exploring that. And I toured and I traveled and I was signed to a record label and I got signed to an agent and I was booking all these gigs and traveling around the world. And I had my personal album under my own name, Rebekah Higgs. And then I also had an electronic dance band called Ruby Jean and the Thoughtful Bees, which was sort of this alter ego situation that I put myself in. So I was always trying to explore new genres and being creative. And then it wasn't really until my daughter was born that my whole perspective shifted and changed. I think just having a child really changed my priorities in life. I realized, I had to take care of somebody else and provide for another human and make sure she was okay and her needs were looked after. And I just felt like my music career was taking me in a more reckless sort of place in my life. So I wanted to create more stability for my child. And there was definitely a lot of hardship and pain in those first early years of Lennon's life. I had a very difficult pregnancy. I had a difficult birth. And then coming out of that for the first year, it was like I was in a fog. I had a lot of challenges being away from my family. By the grace of God and by a bunch of things that sort of happened in my life, I was able to move back to Halifax. And that's where I really restarted my life and reinvented myself into DIY mom. And so the journey of making that change to DIY mom was is a bit of a story. I came back to Halifax. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my next career in life. I got invited to work in the film industry as a casting assistant for one day. By the end of the day, he said, "Oh, you're the best casting assistant I've ever had." He paid me, more than what he offered me to come down the first place. I met the owners of Egg Studio. They asked me to come back the next day for double the salary that they had given me for the first day. And then I just kept showing up every day and working for Egg, even when they didn't necessarily have something for me. I would just show up and be like, "What's going on today?" And it seemed to work out that they always needed me. So within a week or two of doing that, they were like, "Well, let's just put you on the payroll." So then I was an associate producer at Egg Films, and I was learning everything about production. So this is when my eyes started to open to what it takes to create a commercial. And then my curiosity led me down this path of being like, okay, what do you do? Like talking to the client, talking to the agent, talking to the actors in it, talking to the guys behind the camera, talking to the editors, to the data managers, to the producers, learning all these roles. And then because I was so inquisitive and curious, learning about what the next big trend in marketing would be. And at that time, they were saying it would be branded content, which we now know as influencer marketing. But at the time, branded content was really just extended long format commercials. And I thought, what would my brand be? And that's what really brought me back to the DIY aspect of things because as a musician, DIY was a term that we used quite comfortably. We silk screened our own posters. We made our own merch. DIY was a term that we were using quite frequently. So we knew what that was, and it wasn't as overused as it is now. And I just loved the symmetry of like DIY and MOM. And then the fact that I was doing it myself as a single mom, that every part of what I was doing when I started working, in the film and television industry in terms of creating my own content, being my own star, writing the content, creating the crafts and the tutorials. Everything was just very DIY, and so I felt it really went with what I was trying to accomplish under this new moniker, this new brand, DIY Mom. So I launched DIY Mom in 2016. I did a little web series, and from that, I got invited by Bell 5 TV 1 to do my own TV show. And I did 5 seasons of DIY Mom, the TV show for Bell 5 TV 1. And I used that opportunity to kind of leverage more branded content deals and to build my own brand and to build my social media following. So even after the show is gone, I still have that social media following. I still have those branded contract content deals. And even though DIY Mom is constantly evolving and changing, that's still sort of my personal brand that's under the bigger umbrella of Matriarch Productions, which is my TV production company and my construction and renovation company.
What an interesting and amazing story. I mean, it seems like you've really been able to reinvent yourself and create a lot from seemingly nothing. And I know you share that often you started this brand as a broke single mom and you really were doing it yourself. And I think that really is a beautiful metaphor, not only in your career, but just in life in general, moving back to Halifax and starting, restarting, if you will. And I think many of us can relate to portions of your story, whether or not we were musicians or not. But I think all of these little things led you to where you are and the skills that you've picked up and the things that you've learned. I mean, I can relate so much because my career prior to doing what I do now was in marketing and in advertising and then in
Mm.
teaching. And so, now when I'm creating things for my clients, it's like pulling from all the things that I used to do for my clients. And so it's beautiful to see how things have evolved for you. But many of us can feel really scared about restarting or just how we
Mhm.
would navigate the early days. It's so beautiful and incredible to see where you are now. But can you talk to me a little bit about those early days of moving back home, building something from nothing, and maybe some advice that you would share for a listener who is feeling stuck where they are right now? Maybe they do feel like change is important for them, but they just don't know where to start, or making that bold first move seems very daunting right now.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of changes and challenges that I had to deal with when I first came back to Halifax. I did have a 1 year old, so I was probably at my peak of exhaustion. I was able to get her into a shared daycare situation. So I had a couple of days a week where she was in daycare, eventually moving her into full-time daycare when I did get hired at Egg Studios. And then even coming up with the concept of DIY mom, knowing that I thought, oh, this is a good idea. Like, I think that there's a lot of women that relate to this. And the concept for the TV show, when I pitched it to women in film and television, I was like, I want a TV show that is YouTube tutorial mixed with HGTV before and afters. And I felt like that was I thought that was where TV shows were going to be headed, talking directly to the camera, talking all these things that you see now are like infiltrating those type of design and renovation shows where you see them actually talk directly to the camera instead of to the producer off screen, because I didn't have that producer off screen. So I had to talk to directly to the camera. It was just me and my cameraman. So being a trailblazer in that sense, but also kind of sometimes comes with the downside of not seeing the profits from your inventions in a way, because other people are able to kind of like start where you start off where you kind of ended and take it further than you will. But the big thing for me was pushing through all the no's, and I did get a lot of no's, and I did get a lot of responses that from production houses around the city that, oh, DIY mom's not that original of an idea. DIY mom's not that good of an idea. And had I just listened to those folks and said, okay, well, I'll just go back to working for somebody else or trying to figure out, the scramble of being a single mom and being employed, then I'd be in a much different place than I am today. So I think trusting my gut instinct and pushing forward when I felt like it was a good idea and I knew that it would give me the freedom that I longed for if I could get through the sort of the initial difficult stages, and then doing a lot of the things that I could do for myself, like designing my logo, building my website. And then I started to reach out to local companies to see if they were interested in working with me. Like, you give me some materials, I'll build something and I'll film it and I'll mention you in the film. That start is how things kind of started. And then from there, it was like, hey, how about you give me the materials and you pay me and I make the video content, instead of growing from that. So taking baby steps and just walking through those doors as they opened to me. So being aware of when opportunities are being presented to you and not being afraid of walking through them. And I think if you are an entrepreneur or if you have that entrepreneurial instinct in you, then you do have to have a bit of an appetite for risk. And so some folks might say, oh, that's not me. I really need a consistent paycheck. So being okay with that influx of income, because I was raised that way, I was raised with entrepreneurial parents. I think I just had a little bit more of a ability to manage that kind of stress when it was initially when my business was initially starting up, and then being able to live on a very low income at the start too, right? Because I didn't have a lot of extra money coming in, a lot of brand deals. And then being creative in terms of how I structured my first mortgage that was a renovation mortgage as well. So because I had that money to do the renovation, I was able to basically fund my TV show through by not having to take any of the production budget that Belle gave me to put into the renovations. I could use all the production budget to make really good high value content, and then I could use my renovation budget to do the actual renovations. And it wasn't really until I sold the house that I saw the return of my investment, but that led me to the next big renovation and the next big project, and then the following after I went after that, and doing enough flips. I'm eventually at the point now where I will be mortgage free in a year, and so I'll have a complete new set of freedom and the ability to kind of go wherever I want to go after that point, because I won't have the burden of a big mortgage.
And I do want to talk about your flipping homes and this mortgage-free lifestyle. I think many of us see that as a beautiful goal to have, or just something to look ahead to. But I also want to touch upon what you mentioned when you're talking about those early stages, and just trusting your gut and following your intuition. Because like you were saying, when you started this, content creation and influencer marketing was not at the forefront. It's not what it is today. So talk to us about trusting your gut in helping you make those big decisions. Why is something like, that intuitive nudge that is within you, why is that so important, especially as a woman in business, especially doing something that perhaps has not been done or is not as common?
Yeah, I think that trusting my gut has been something that has come and gone over the years, because I've definitely been in times where I felt less confident and maybe made choices that I didn't necessarily follow my gut instinct. But when I I think that it was a mixture of the feeling of trusting my gut, knowing that it was a good idea, and then educating myself. So then I would do the research in terms of, okay, how do I how do I make a website? How do I upload a video to YouTube? How do I get a renovation mortgage? How do I edit videos? And then like being thirsty for that knowledge, asking questions. And like when I was working with other people, trying to pick up as much information as I possibly could from them so that I wouldn't need to rely on that person always. Like eventually I could do it for myself. The other like big thing that I had to learn was how to manage relationships with brands, how to do those cold calls and ask for financial support or ask for donations of materials. And that was a huge part of the success of putting more equity into my home and then seeing that return on the back end when I sold it. So the the challenge there of listening to your gut, and but also making educated choices, I think it's just a part of that, your own personal education and an investment that you're making into yourself. So you may not have to invest in a course, but that time that you're putting into starting your business and learning a new skill is certainly valuable, because it's going to lead you to the next place in your life. And when I think of all the things that I'm doing now and I look back on what has led me to this point, I think it's phenomenal how many of my life, the situations and my life experience has brought me to this point, and how I'm able to use all of that life experience in my business now, and even in the philanthropy work that I do. Just going back to all that and seeing how I've like took those, the hardship, the difficult things that have happened to me in my life, and use them as stepping stones and building blocks. Because I don't think you really understand what it means to trust your gut and your instinct until you've been gaslit so many times that you have lost that sense of your gut. And so it's like returning to those gut instincts through therapy or through internal family systems or other practices that I've done that have really helped me to kind of come back to that initial gut instinct that I felt so strongly about because it has gone in waves over the years.
That's beautiful. And I do appreciate what you're saying, that it is to come back to a place of stillness where you can connect or reconnect with yourself, to receive those nudges, to have that gut feeling. But then it's not just blindly moving into whatever that is instinct is informing you. It's then educating yourself and moving through it in a way that allows you to perhaps um, remove some of the fear, but also give you some of that comfort, knowing that you're stepping into this direction, with a little bit behind you. You're not just blindly moving forward. And I think that's oftentimes where people can get a little bit scared, like I have this great idea and I don't know what to do next, but it's taking that little small step, doing a little bit of research or connecting or sending an email or having a conversation. And then little by little, it's moving you forward. And so I really appreciate that. Now, when you're talking about how you were, using the equity and some of the budgets that you had
Mhm.
to renovate, and then you saw that return when you sold your house, it then led you to flipping multiple homes. And now what you're saying is to build this mortgage-free life, which is so incredible. Congratulations and kudos to
Thank you.
you. Um, Share that process. Was that always an end goal, or was it just one of those things where you were following the nudges and you realized this can be a great opportunity? This can be an incredible investment that will create financial independence, through real estate and through business. Talk to me about that. And then any advice that you might have for the listener who's interested in this path as well.
Yeah, I think just focusing on one home at a time in the early process of my career really allowed me to make good decisions and to put that value back into my home, but then also not to be overwhelmed by having too many projects. So I would really focus my attention on yeah, as learning as I went. It was the same thing with renovations. Like when I first did my first renovation, I had no experience. So I learned as much as I could. I asked as many questions as I could. I worked with trades and at the time mostly men that were working with me, but ones that were open to sharing information and educating me in a way that felt gentle and not not somehow putting me down as a woman that was curious about the renovation industry. So
Mansplaining it.
yeah. And there's definitely been the share of mansplaining along the way. But I think just like continuing to build that internal Rolodex of understanding and renovation, just like I can understand the process of editing a video and storytelling. Um, these are all things that have greatly benefited me now that I'm on my fourth major home where I'm building it from scratch. I have this huge Rolodex of contacts that I can use to build it from scratch. So I can contract it myself and I can save a big chunk of money that way by being my own contractor. But I also understand where I made mistakes in the past, like when I was not organized, how I wasted money through making the wrong decision
Mhm.
and then having to backtrack. And so just being like very smart, very organized, very planned. And I don't necessarily think of myself as a highly organized person. I'm definitely artistic first. And so sometimes like the organization piece falls a bit flat, but when I work with other people, they always comment, "Oh, you're so organized." Like even yesterday, I met with a concrete guy, and he said, "Well, you seem to be way more organized than anybody else I work with, so I'm not too worried about this." And here I am thinking, "Well, I've never excavated for a foundation and done a form." So part of it is just like, yeah, faking it till you make it, understanding the terminology and the language that you're going to communicate with these individuals with so that they have a level of respect for you, but then just using every opportunity to build build the information in your mind, build that Rolodex, those people that you can call on when you need help and assistance. And that's just, I think that has been a great learning tool as I've gone through the renovations. But the part about your own equity and building your equity through purchasing and selling your primary home, I think is a very unique way that we can get ahead in Canada because you can sell your primary home and not pay taxes on it. So when I was able to sell a house and then buy a new house, I would basically always kind of sell the house and then buy the house for maybe the price that I sold the last house for. So I was kind of moving up every time. Um, or at least I'd be even by the end of the renovation of the next one. So I was sort of used to going from like 100,000 in my bank to zero in my bank. Like I became very, very comfortable with this influx of like, oh, money in, money out, and just getting used to that flow of money. I think that's why I'm also so relaxed about and generous about my giving, because I am used to seeing that influx in money in my bank account. And I don't hold on to it too tightly because I know it'll eventually come back, but you have to sort of spend the money to make the money. Um, so that was yeah, so I think that was a very unique way, and I do know that some people it's just not for them. They don't like the idea of moving every 3 years or every 5 years, or they feel like they're upending their children and their neighborhood, and so you do lose a little bit of that neighborhood connection and maybe some of that consistency. Like my daughter did change through schools 3 times, but it was all in order to get into the best neighborhood with the best school. So now she is in like a very good school district and we can stay in this district. And I just keep looking for houses in the same school district. So it's definitely a unique lifestyle. It's not for everybody, but it has been the quickest way for me to build my own personal equity and get to this point of being mortgage free by my next home.
That's awesome. We're in spring, we're just starting April. And I think a lot of this sounds so appealing. We're in this season for renewal and refreshing. And I've been talking a lot about, just doing a spring clean when it comes to our energy and our mindset. And you've spoken a lot about, how you following your intuition, how you do have a positive money mindset, knowing that, money is always flowing, it's always moving and it's coming and going. I don't know if you could share maybe something about how you approach spring, whether it's doing a spring clean, whether it's, in your home, if there was someone who is like me, who has a beautiful Pinterest boards filled with all of these incredible ideas, and I'm a little bit too scared to try things, to start things, to do it myself. What are some of those sustainable or budget-friendly ways that we can refresh our home, that maybe we can dip our toe in the DIY space without spending a fortune, without having to move or do all these maybe bigger changes? How can we create that spring refresh?
I think that doing a good declutter spring refresh is a great place to start because if you are able to clear out some space and get rid of a lot of things, then you can make more space to be creative in that room or to open up areas of your house maybe that you're not using currently. So, like I had a ton of stuff in my attic and my attic was basically not being used because I was using it as a storage facility. So I've really made it my goal for this year, for 2025, to try to get rid of almost half of my possessions because we are downsizing a little bit into the new home. And because I have a partner now and we're going to be moving in together, then I do know I can't bring everything from this house. So I'm really spending a lot of time this year and trying to get rid of half of my things. And I think just having less clutter is a great way just to create more mental freedom. And the clutter and the things around our house can often add to the confusion. And so somebody
Mhm.
like me who has a little bit of touch of ADHD and maybe I'm easily distracted, just if things are not clean and tidy, I'm easily distracted by that. I can't focus on other things. So getting rid of things, having less stuff is a great place to start. And even a very minimal decor, if you end up getting rid of a lot of things, that's a style choice. That's a good place to start. And then from there you pepper in the meaningful things. So keeping hold of the heirlooms and the pictures and the things that are meaningful to you and then using them in your decor. So one of the very first episodes I did of DIY Mom, I did a gallery wall up my staircase because I had all these tokens from over the years. I had art from my friends and journal articles in picture frames and posters from shows that I had played and awards that were framed and different and family pictures and historic pictures and things that were meaningful to me. So I was like, okay, I don't want all these things just to be stored somewhere. I want them out in the open so I can enjoy the history of my life in open. And so I created the gallery wall for one of my very first tutorials. So I think that after you've done your big declutter and your big clean and you've created more space in your house, then go through the things that you are holding on to, that you are keeping that are meaningful, and find ways to incorporate those into your decor. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to, and that will also bring your own personality and your personal touch into your home. And then those things that are meaningful to you will be there on a daily basis to remind you of all the things you have to be grateful for.
I love that so much. And it's so true. Like all of these things are tucked away, they're in boxes or they're, stuffed in like a furnace room somewhere. And that I'm thinking of myself, but it's so beautiful to be reminded of the experiences and the journey you've had, or, your kids' finger paintings when they were super young, or these things that we can put out. It's not causing clutter because it's in a way that is really beautiful to look at. And then it just brings it back to what's really important in life and all of the things that we have to be grateful for. So I love that really budget friendly idea to use what we have and to release some of the things that maybe aren't as important to declutter and to create space both mentally and in our spaces. If we did have a bit of a budget, or we did want to do some higher impact home upgrades, maybe we are thinking of moving or flipping or just wanting to enjoy our space more, what are some of those higher impact upgrades that we can do right now that will not only add to the value of our home in bigger ways, but just bring that new energy into our space in impactful ways that you would recommend?
Definitely a fresh coat of paint can go a long way. Choosing colors that are maybe creating a mood board or a color palette that you want to work throughout your house that are based on the things that you already own, like your big furniture pieces, your lighting, and incorporating that into maybe the paint that you put on your walls or the decor around your home. So um, things that I love to do in my houses that make me feel like they're showcasing my personality. It might be a wallpaper in the powder room. A powder room is a great place to add a splash of color, to do something a bit bold. It's a small enough place to tackle that it's not going to cost a ton of money to put wallpaper up. And it's probably something you can do yourself because it's a small enough space that you could start with like a powder room wall to do your own wallpaper. I also love staircase runners because I like the texture and the warmth it brings to the house. But I also have slipped down the stairs a few times. And so I'm a big fan of a staircase runner. That's another way that I've chosen either to bring some color into my home or just to warm up the space by adding some textiles and textures. That's also something that you can easily learn to do if you have a staple gun even. I've done it before by hand with just a staple gun. Certainly easier if you have a battery operated tool, but I have tutorials of all kinds of different ways of installing staircase runners on my YouTube channel. And then rearranging furniture that really opens up the space, or just sometimes just the placement of your furniture can make a huge difference. And then I also love to upgrade hardware on cabinets and light fixtures. So if you have a lot of builder basic light fixtures in your home because you bought a brand new house and they put in basic light fixtures, maybe you want to start switching up those light fixtures. And you could start with the big centerpiece ones like the dining room light or the pendants over your kitchen island, or a front entrance light, or your ensuite in your bedroom, or like a really beautiful light fixture on the ceiling in your bedroom. And then adding pillows and throws and blankets and curtains that add to either the color palette that you want or just are making your house feel more like a home. So it's amazing what some drapes can do in your living room to make everything feel more cozy. And the right type of pillows and throws on a bed or on a couch can really add personality and just make that home feel so much more like your space that you're living in and that you're enjoying, and it's very welcoming and hospitable for those that come to visit you at your home.
These are the best ideas because as you're saying all of these, I'm like, I can do this. This is something I can tackle. This is something that's easy enough that's not going to completely overwhelm me. I have three young boys, so it's a bit of a, chaotic scene often. And I was just thinking too about the stair runner because we recently had our floors replaced and we live in a two-story home, but the main staircase we have also an elderly dog who we didn't want to
Yes.
put the flooring and redo the stairs. It's still in the old Berber carpet because he won't go up and down like a hard floor. And so we still have this old beige stained Berber carpet. So I'm thinking maybe we do the runner and let's check out the YouTube channel and see if
Yeah.
perhaps we feel like we can tackle it ourselves. So this is
Yeah. And so
super,
if you're
super
taking
helpful.
like, and if you're ripping off a carpet that is like right around the nose of the treads, it's like fully carpeted staircase. Then once you take the carpet off, you can see what the condition of the wood is under the stairs. Sometimes they'll be in almost perfect condition. There's just some holes from where they stapled. Other times, if it's in too rough of a condition, then I just suggest to people that they give it a light scuff and then paint the steps. If you don't want to have to do a full refinishing because it is a messy job and creates a lot of dust in your home, then and you're ripping off old carpet, you can do a painted stair look with a staircase runner. It's also a very classy look, and a great way to kind of update your home, especially if the staircase is such a centerpiece in the house. So it's great to do something creative on your staircase.
I'm so inspired. I am so inspired. Thank you so much. Um, I do want to talk about your philanthropy and the things that you're doing now to support others, especially a recent trip that you just took to South Africa. It sounds so interesting. Talk to me about your interest in serving others and how this led you to spending some time in South Africa. You worked with Hope for Africa, so I would love for you to tell the listeners. It sounds like such a beautiful initiative in a way that people are caring for others. What inspired you to get into this type of work and to take this trip? Because it's not a quick jaunt from Halifax to South
No,
Africa.
it's
So tell us more about this.
sure. Um, so I started to get interested in working with organizations within Halifax, and I think it's very important that we do what we can at our home and in our home base as well, that supported single mothers and especially women that were fleeing domestic violence. Because I had been in a situation myself that I had to flee, and had I not had the support of my family, I myself would have had to go to a shelter with my child. And so that whole situation that I experienced really gave me a different level of empathy for women that are going through these experiences. And then through COVID, the rise in intimate partner violence, and we've seen so many femicides here in Nova Scotia. That was just shocking and overwhelming to me, and I just felt like compelled that I had to do something and use my voice in that way to speak up for those women. And being in a place now in my life where I do have more security, and my daughter and I feel very safe where we are now, and we have that economic security and our housing security. I just felt like the timing was right for me to give back. I was raised with parents that did teach us generosity and giving back, and we often did like family outings that involved some type of work related sort of vacation, I guess. My sister would always say, why can't we just go on a normal vacation like a normal family? We were always doing these philanthropic things as a family. But I think that sort of instilled in me a perspective outside of myself, and just knowing that I was a part of a bigger puzzle and just not the most important person in the world. So I think like that idea of keeping yourself small, like you're not as important as you think, gives you that mindset that I want to help other people, or I want to do more outside of myself. I want to have an impact that lasts further than my life. So I was really involved with ADSM for Women and Children, and I had an apartment building downtown Halifax that was short-term rentals, and I decided to change those into transitional housing because they were already furnished and ready to go. And since the shelters were over full, allowing women that had been in the shelters for a while and looking for their next step to secure rental situation outside of the shelters, that this would be a transitional home for them to go to for like 4 to 6 months before they found their permanent home, kind of like helping them along that stepping stone. So I did that for a bit, but I realized that I didn't have like I really needed a full-time social worker to deal with the tenants that I was given. And I realized I didn't have the skills to really help these women the way that I felt like they needed to be helped. So when I met Heather from Hope of Africa in September, she came to Nova Scotia to visit our family because my parents had already been involved with her, helping her make some real estate deals happen in South Africa. And so when she has shown me all the exciting things that they were doing, Hope of Africa is a leadership school for young adults between the age of 18 and 34. And it teaches them how to be great leaders in their communities, but also gives them the tools that they need to be entrepreneurs and to start their entrepreneurial journey. Because there's a few different things that these kids are dealing with in South Africa. They are dealing with a lot of youth looking for employment and not enough jobs. So it's a very high unemployment rate. Even if you have a university degree, it's like 70% of them get out of university and have no job prospects. So really what they need to do is to start their own businesses because there's a huge workforce and there's plenty of things that need to be built or made or sold or services that need to be provided. It's just a matter of helping them discover their passion and then helping them develop those skills to be their own boss and to be an entrepreneur. So I really loved that because that's exactly what I did in my life. I realized I was never going to be employed by somebody else, or that if I could rely on myself for my own employment, then I knew that I'd be okay. And so that whole mantra that I was raised with, that whole make it happen mantra, that you have to make it happen for yourself, that nobody cares about your career like you do. Like if you want something, go and make it happen. I realized that this is something that I could hopefully help instill in these kids in South Africa. So that was part of the reason I was drawn to Hope of Africa. But the real reason I ended up going was because I felt like they didn't have enough marketing material. I felt like they didn't have footage showing exactly what they were doing. I felt like they didn't have a clear message, and Heather needed my help with creating content and making videos. So my first thing I thought was, I'll just go over to South Africa and I'll help you make videos and I'll just film everything you're doing and I'll edit stuff. But then, of course, when I got there, I ended up doing so much more than just that, because if you want to feel useful, or if you have skills that you haven't tapped into in a while, be sure that if you go to South Africa, all of those skills that you have will resurface. And so while I was there, it's like everything that I had ever done in my whole life was coming back to me as a skill that was useful. So I was, showing them how to update websites, showing them how to edit videos, showing them how I film and do the audio and put the story together, and how I use ChatGTP like a sounding board if I need to come up with a voiceover script, or how to, like work with AI so that it benefits you. And then I also worked with the kids and created a choir. So it's like my music background was coming back, and we did
Wow.
performances as a choir in the communities to tell them about the school and raise awareness about Hope of Africa. And then they were also doing construction at the farm. So I was there filming the construction, but I also could take a look at the plans and offer some insights. And then they also, at the farm, they have Airbnb that is needs some TLC and needs some new furniture. And so I was out shopping for new furniture and helping them restage these Airbnbs and giving them suggestions in terms of how I made my Airbnbs here in Canada successful. What are the hotel and hospitality standards that we need to bring this Airbnb up to in order to make more money that can help generate the farm and help generate the school. And so the idea for the school is to, they now have a home base in Melilan right next to Kruger National Park. So they want to find ways to generate income so that the school can be self-funded. They don't have to rely as much on Western funding, but also that would create new opportunities, new entrepreneurial opportunities for the kids. So, we're building a cafe so they can learn how to do to cook and to make coffees and to be a barista and to make sandwiches and to serve tourists and guests. And then we're also doing a boutique market shop. So making your own materials to sell in the shop. So we're talking like pottery, painting, sewing, beadwork, weavings, skincare products, all kinds of things that they can do as their own little brand as they figure out what they're what they're passionate about, but it can be sold in the shop. They can make some money and the income will go back to sustaining the building. So all of these things I felt like were like very much in line with how I've already built my brand, how I've found success in my life, and I felt like I could share that with the women. And then plus many of these kids are single moms themselves. A lot of them have children very young and they're relying and they are responsible for multiple dependents. So, I understood that as well. So I felt like I could come to that go to South Africa and really serve them and also use everything that has happened in my life up to this point to share whatever information, whatever knowledge I could with them and help them on their journey.
What I really appreciate about what you shared, it's absolutely incredible. But you went there to help them, to provide them with the services that you offer. But what you ended up doing was educating them and allowing them to learn how to do it themselves. So now you've instilled these skills in them, and now they can carry it forward and they can continue. It's not like, okay, we've got these initial videos and that's all we have. It's kind of like, if you want to, if someone's hungry, you don't give them a fish, you teach them a fish, or whatever that
Mm.
analogy is. And it's incredible how you've given them this foundation that now they can really build upon and flourish. So that's so beautiful. And thank you so much for all of the beautiful work that you're doing. Um,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, because I've really enjoyed our conversation and I really enjoyed learning and hearing from you. And a big takeaway for me in listening to your journey and the things that you've accomplished is really that nothing is wasted, that everything is usable, whether that's the skills that you have, whether it's things that you have in your home, whether it's off
Hmm.
things that you can support others with. Like really, you can, there's no, wasted day or wasted skill or regret, because everything that you've gone through has led you to where you are today. So for
Hmm.
someone who's listening, perhaps they're in a challenging situation, perhaps they're leaving a spouse, or perhaps they're moving, or they're feeling overwhelmed in their career, or just where they are in life, finances or motherhood, career, what have you. What's one final piece of advice or takeaway, or just words of support that you can offer to the listener?
I think that when there's a lot of chaos going around us, it can be very going on around us. It can be very difficult to really tune into what direction you should be taking in life or what path you should be following. So I think the first thing I would say to people that are feeling overwhelmed and they're in a transition period is to take some time for yourself. So for me, I find I have a great creative response, or my brain is allowed to really flow and think about the next step if I'm, say, in a sauna, just doing deep breathing with no noise by myself. And I have a $80 membership to the Y, and they have a sauna. And I literally just walk myself to the Y and use the sauna and walk home. I don't do anything else other than just go for the sauna. So maybe the sauna is a great way for you to just take some time and breathe. And I have found that sometimes it takes almost an hour of decompression before the space in your brain kind of opens up and these new thoughts can come in. But just asking the universe, or if you believe in a higher power or creator, to put those thoughts into your mind when you are taking that quiet time. And the thing about meditation too, if you don't have a meditation practice, or if you're interested in starting a meditation practice, it really is just trying to even start with 20 seconds or 30 seconds of just trying not to think and let your brain be clear of any thought. And when thoughts come in, you just ask them to be dismissed, because taking that time to almost like regulate your brain by just not having more chaos in your brain can really open up your mind to get that new fresh idea and that energy you need to put that idea into action. So yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't know what to do now, just take some time to be quiet. And the other ways you could do that would be maybe just going for a walk by yourself without headphones in, just listening to nature or sitting by some water or whatever it is that helps awaken your senses. Maybe it's like building a fire in the woods and staring at a fire. Maybe it's looking at the ocean. Maybe it's looking at the trees. So just taking that opportunity to have some time for yourself is very crucial in that transition phase. And then yeah, just like waiting for that spark of energy, journaling about it, trying to sort of put the pieces together of all the threads in your life through writing it down or through seeing it on paper could be a really great way to see how it's all going to come together. And then make sure you know what you're passionate about. And if there's something in your life that you are passionate about that you don't have enough time to do because everything else is taking away time from it, maybe you need to carve out some space so that you can put more time and effort into that passion, because that passion is really going to be a driving force to getting you to the success. And if you don't have an interest in it, and if you're not excited about it, and then every morning is going to feel like a huge task and a burden to get out of bed. So do something that excites you, do something that makes it easy to get out of bed. And if you need to get out of a relationship if you're in a bad situation, I always tell people that you got to make a plan and an exit strategy, because these people are probably holding you back in your life. They're adding a lot of extra stress in your life, and you will feel the freedom when you are away from them, even if financial burden is being used to keep you in that place. I can tell you that there'll be nothing more financially burdening to you than your health, and your health will fail if you are continuously made to feel weak and small and like you're not good enough. So, really getting that confidence back, it will be a huge part of your health journey, and it'll give you the energy to do the next thing, to make the next hard thing happen in your life, and to take the steps towards success.
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, so much can be gained from a short pause. And I appreciate, even in the simplest form, of you sharing to declutter our homes, to declutter our minds and our spaces, to allow for that fresh energy to come in, and to have that plan in moving forward by taking those small steps. That's beautiful, Rebekah. What's on tap for you? What's next? What are those fresh ideas that you're coming up with? Any exciting next steps that you can share with us before we leave?
Yeah, I'm very excited that I'm building a home this year. So a lot of fresh ideas, because I always am looking to do something that hasn't been seen before or something that's exciting for my audience. So I love a big new project because it gives endless opportunities to be creative, which is wonderful, and so many more opportunities to tell the story through video. So this month we are starting excavation and foundation on a new home build. And then I'm finishing up work with my clients, and then I hope to be able to spend more time in Africa with all the different things that they have going on there. And I know that I can bring other things to the table, like humane habitats that have better ventilation and that are made with traditional materials, and hopefully teaching the kids how to build them so they can take them back to their villages and build them for other people and be their own contractor and their own boss. So yeah, lots of exciting things on the horizon for this year, but I'm very excited to get to next spring 2026 and be hopefully mortgage free. And then, the possibilities will feel endless at that point, because I can really change and shift and decide where I want to go from there. And DIY Mom has gotten me to this point in my life. I'm so grateful for it. And I don't know what the next chapter of my life will hold, but I know that everything that I've experienced up to this point will come with me on that journey. And if people want to watch those episodes of DIY Mom, like all 5 seasons, are available on trybinge.tv or on my YouTube channel. So, yeah, if you want to see the journey of where I started to where I am now, you can watch all of those seasons from start to finish. And if you want to connect with me on my social media, I would love to hear from you. If you're learning about me for the first time from The Juggle is Real, please do message and say hi to me on social media.
That would be awesome. We'll include those links in the notes so we can continue to be inspired by your work. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you today and such an honor to meet you and share this time. Thank you so much, Rebekah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time too.
Such a beautiful, incredible conversation. I mean, I really enjoyed getting to know Rebekah and hearing about these little steps that she's taken that have created such an impact, both for herself and her life, for her daughter, in the community that she lives in, and now worldwide. It's such a beautiful reminder that it's never too late, that truly nothing is wasted, and that we only have things to gain as we move forward. What a beautiful reminder of the power of reinvention. So as you leave this conversation, please, I hope you take away all of these beautiful insights from Rebekah. Head to the notes for this podcast episode so that you can keep in touch and follow along with her in her journey and get more ideas and inspiration as she builds this new build. I can't wait to follow along as well. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would truly appreciate if you could share it with a friend, perhaps a fellow DIY mom or someone who inspires or would love to become a DIY mom. And write me a review in Apple Podcasts, and make sure that you've subscribed. Come on back. We've got so many beautiful episodes of The Juggle is Real to come. Until then, take good care.